Good day, grade 12 learners, and welcome to today's English home language lesson. My name is Vash Sujit, and thank you once again for joining us for this lesson. This lesson is proudly brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Cybono Discovery Center. And today, grade 12s, we're going to be focusing on a recap of the 45, 55, 65% strategy that we are working with English home language. Now, this is particularly working with your paper one, or in terms of your test for this term one's test on your comprehension skills, your summary skills, and your language skills. Okay, so I'm going to take you through what's expected of you and give you a few hints on how to maximize the opportunity in terms of getting marks for each of the questions that are set. So, what's the quick wins on comprehension? First and foremost, remember grade 12s that you have been given a text of about 700 words to 800 words, if not 600 to 700 words, right? You're going to have to now read that text. You're going to decode it for a message and understand why the writer put those words in that particular text, okay? He has an intention in communicating with you, and therefore you need to kind of decode what that message is all about. So what should you do? Is firstly, when you get this paper, take the time given to you for reading. Now, that means that 10-minute reading time is there for you to do just that. Read through the paper. Understand how many questions you have to answer, for example. Then look at your instruction words in that text, okay, or in those questions that are posed to you. Look at also highlighting, underlining important information that you are reading while you are going through that particular text. All right. But if we're looking at a quick wins just for your comprehension, these are the steps you need to follow. So you've done the reading 3 times already. You're now going to spend within those 3 readings. It will be done in 15 minutes. You're going to read and then reread the passage, okay? At the second reading, you're going to be highlighting your topic sentence. Remember that most important sentence around which all the other ideas are then founded or are taking place, okay? And then from there, you're going to then highlight that particular sentence in each paragraph and then get the gist of what is being said in the text, okay? And on the third reading, you would have then already read the questions as well and then understood what is it we're expecting of you. All right, spend 45 minutes on answering the questions. Now, if you are faster, by all means, that's very good. Go ahead and do it. But we're saying 45 minutes is needed for you as an average learner to read the text, to answer the questions set on it, and to understand exactly what is happening in that text, okay? The moment you start going over 45 minutes, remember grade 12s, you will be putting yourself under pressure with the other questions that are set, okay? So start practicing already. Hopefully you've already started, but start from now if you have to. Practice to get yourself within that time frame of answering questions on comprehension. All right. There will always be either question 1.11 or 1.12, which is the comparison question between the two texts. Now there'll be text A, which is the written text, and then text B, which would probably maybe be a cartoon strip, for example. Sorry, a cartoon strip, or maybe an image on an advert, for example, okay, that could be there. There might not be so many words in that particular piece of work, but there will be a text related to text A in some way, okay? So please look at that question. It's usually, it's been 4 marks before, but we did see a change where that mark allocation was dropped to 3. Right, so this question should receive 6 minutes on its own, right? If it's a 4 mark. If it's the 3 mark question, then you would then give it 4 minutes, okay? Now remember, it needs that time because you're going to firstly read what part of text A is being asked of you to understand, and then read text B's part as well, and then see the correlation between the two. text and then offer the comment, all right? That has to be given there. So that is where you're going to spend that 4 minutes on formulating your answer and understanding what we want you to look at. Then read through the passage quickly again. The title of the passage will give you a clue as to what this passage is all about, as you know, okay? Read through the comprehension questions. When you're doing this, please keep the main ideas in mind as well when you're going through. Right. Identify, please, the purpose of the text. In other words, grade 12s, when you communicate with someone, you are saying something for a particular reason. In the same way, a writer is writing something in a particular way because that's his idea that he wants to get across to us. So you need to decode that message. Break down the heading, the source, for example, look at that. Where is this text coming from? All right. And what's the style? Is this text very formal in the way it's written? Who's the target audience, for example, also, okay? Look at then what kind of language is being used. Figurative or connotative language. Is there emotive words being used? All of those things you will be looking at when you're trying to understand. Right. Then read the instructions very carefully. Now, why do we say that? Remember, we want you to do something specifically, and therefore that will come through in the instructions. So if you don't read your instructions, you will just be basically going in there blindfolded and trying to understand what to do. So the instructions are there for you to read and understand what we want from you with regards to answering the questions. Read the questions again and decide which level each of that question is at. So for example, if you've been paying attention over this year already, we've discussed the Barrett's taxonomy. So that is testing your levels of understanding on the various levels from level 1 to level 5. Can you firstly just recall information and give us an answer? Can you then take what you've read and work with it to reorganize important information? Okay, can you then offer us a judgment that you've made? And based on that judgment, can you tell us why you have that judgment and allow us to believe that particular viewpoint? And finally, can we then, while testing you on level 5, gauge that it has an impact on you or not? So that's where we're going with this, okay? We're testing to see, can you decode from the simple level to the more complex level? So your level 1 and level 2 questions, grade 12s, remember, it's very much a straightforward answer that we require of you. So you don't need to do anything else except gather the information from the text, rephrase it into your words, and give us an answer. Okay. Secondly, with regards to rephrasing sentences, please, grade 12s, if you are finding it difficult to rephrase an answer, look at nowadays maybe blogs on the internet, or maybe research you've done on the internet on a particular topic that you've wanted to know more about. Look at that and try and find ways to put those ideas on the internet or in that blog in your own words. Okay, you can use newspaper articles as well if you're that learner who likes the hard copy of things to work with, right? This will help you score marks when you're doing this kind of activity in both your comprehension and your summary, because we can then see that you're able to decode information, right? Remember also, there's a mark allocation for each question. Now that mark given at the right-hand side of the page that you will be seeing is an indication of how many ideas we want in your answer. So for example, if you see a 2-mark allocation, we're saying we want one idea solidly answered or given to us there. All right, explained well for us. If I'm giving you a 3-mark question, I'm saying give me either 2 ideas and a comment explaining those ideas, or give me your idea, one idea fully explained with all possibilities included in that. And that's possibly how you would get your 3-mark. All right. please always get a general idea of what is being spoken about, because that is going to be applicable for a learner, for example, who likes to imagine things. Okay, now not all of us are about taking a piece, reading it, and then regurgitating. Some of us, or the majority of us, I would like to believe, will take what we've read and imagine what's going on in this particular text in our thinking capacity, okay, using our thinking capacity. So when you're doing that, sometimes you might have images flashing in your sub realm, okay, or your mental realm, where you are thinking about all these images and what they could possibly mean in terms of the text you have read. You could also maybe at that time think about a tune that may have had similar words that this particular text has included here. So these are the kinds of things you need to work with if you are not the learner who just likes to read something and regurgitate. All right? So this will help us to essentially maintain focus of what's being said. Now, some practical advice for you grade 12s. When you're reading the questions, I did say to you, you're going to, while reading the text, highlight the topic sentence and highlight important information. In the questions, you're also going to look for the instruction word. In other words, that instruction or question word is there to guide you on what we expect your answer to be like. So, for example, if I'm saying list something, I mean, just give me one word, comma, another word, comma, another word. That's a list. If I'm saying explain or discuss, I'm detailing a little bit more to you in that question word. I'm saying, can you now offer a judgment that you've made and justify it? Can you tell me why this viewpoint is a valid viewpoint or not? That would be your discussion that we are looking for. All right. So each of the questions will usually contain that keyword or that key idea. Look for that and circle it. Please remember to scan and skim. So you can focus from the middle of the text and then going to the top and the bottom, or you can go from the top all the way to the bottom, trying to figure out what's going on here. So what you're basically then doing is putting yourself or your eyes into a search mode. You are trying to decipher or decode or break down what each paragraph is speaking about in this text. All right, so that is important. We would then be able to get the whole meaning of this particular text and then understand why the writer has used certain words to express his or her viewpoint. So please take note of that. All right. Then we get to the summary part of the paper. Now, the summary part is one that is easy marks if you're struggling in terms of how to get the 7 marks, okay, out of 10. But if you're that candidate who is always willing to be challenged and you always want to get better at what you're doing, then you would understand that the summary skill is all about seeing. Can you take huge chunks of information, understand it, put it into your own words in smaller amounts of words? Okay, so the concept of summary writing is just that. We are saying, can you give us a shortened version of the text that is in front of you, keeping the main ideas, the gist that is what this text is all about, and the points that are worth remembering? Can you pull that out from the text and formulate a paragraph for us? Now, there is a strict requirement of paragraph writing grade 12s. You cannot expect to get full marks if you are not following the instruction, which is to do a paragraph form. All right. So as much as you're reading and getting your 7 points and you've plotted it as 7 bullets, that's not what I'm saying to you that needs to be done. Fair enough, you've got the 7 bullets. Now you put that bullet form summary into a paragraph format. That is how we're testing to see, are you having the ability to use interlinking words? Can you make use of homonyms or synonyms or antonyms, for example, when formulating that text? All right, that paragraph, I mean. So with the summary, trying to get the most important information, we're looking at about 7 points here, okay? There can be more, but we're looking essentially at 7 points. Read the original text and get a feel of what it's all about. Then you read the text again. Notice there's always the emphasis of at least 2 to 3 readings of the text. Purely because when you read it on the first time, you got a very superficial idea of what's happening. On the second time, you're now highlighting information, you're jotting down important points. You are making sure you know what each paragraph's talking about. You're finding the details that are adding on to the main idea to get the writer's viewpoint across. All right, so on that second reading of the text, you are now highlighting or basically underlining important information. Please be accurate and clear and straightforward in how you are putting those sentences or those points across. Remember, shorter piece of work. Your maximum word count here is 90 words. Do not go over it and expect the marker to read 200 words, for example, because that's not the point. We want to see, can you get to 90 words? Also, don't go too short and then expect us to find the relevant 7 points in those in the less than 90 words. Okay, it's possible, but not always possible that you will get your 7 points covered. Then please use your own words as far as possible. Now there we can see that the examiner wants to see whether you can gauge meaning. Can you understand that a phrase in that particular text means this kind of thing? All right. Please use interlinking words. For example, like further or furthermore, therefore, those kind of words. However, can also be used to get one idea flowing to the next idea. Use full sentences. We're not looking for phrases or looking for clauses here. We want a fully fledged sentence. Okay? If you're not too clued up on sentences, go back and revise the types of sentences. There's a difference between statements, simple sentence, complex sentence, compound sentence. All those things need to be understood. All right. And then please leave out examples or quotations or long descriptions given in the text. All right. You need to take all of those things and simplify it into less words. Right? Don't give us the direct speech quoted from a text as well. So with the summary, you need to firstly delete. In other words, all the descriptions, all the examples, the explanations, and the elaborations need to be removed from the text. So even if you're somebody who doesn't want to highlight, but you like to strike off things, then take the question paper, take a pencil and a ruler, and strike off information that you don't think is relevant for the summary, and then formulate. Okay, so when you've done that, you have deleted all those unnecessary details that you deem unfit for this summary. You're then going to replace, for example, there could be technical terms that are used in a particular field of study. That's jargon. You're going to remove the jargon and put that into your own words. Okay? Then you're going to check that you've kept the main idea of the text. The moment something deviates from what the original text was talking about, then you know you have not done justice. All right? So what do we do to ensure we have done justice? We go back and look at the statement and the instruction given to us in the question, and then read the summary I'm constructing right now to see that it is in line with what has been asked. And then I'm going to list the key concepts identified from the text and then write my 7 points into a fully fledged paragraph. Okay? That is how you will work with the summary. Now, when we're marking the summary, usually we're saying 7 plus 3. The 3 mark is for the language component, all right? Now, there will be parts of your summary where the marker will check Have you quoted verbatim? That means direct words for words. Then you would, including our punctuation marks and all those things, then your language mark will drop from the 3 to the 2 to the 1 to the 0, depending on how many quotes you have used, okay, from the text, direct quotes. If you've used 7 direct quotes, in other words, you've changed nothing, you will still get 7 marks. And that is a point that you need to look at as well. All right. But we obviously want you to get the maximum. So we're saying, give us the paragraph form where you've included all of the information. Right. Let's go back here. Oops. Right. So that is the end of your summary. Then when we're looking at the advertisements, that's part of the text, the test as well, or even your exam paper. Remember, grade 12s, that an advert will have visuals in that advert. And this particular visual will either engage or not engage with me in terms of written text. So there could be a limited amount of words in the text or a substantial amount of words. But obviously the image that is being showcased is important. The visuals are often a better way of communicating than writing. So there we're saying when you're looking at an image, you can decipher body language, facial expression. You can look at characteristics that that particular image is showcasing to you. All right? And that's where that visual part becomes more important. So they can also overcome language barriers and ensure that understanding is clear just by understanding the image. So advertising also is not always about selling a product. It could just be to create awareness about a particular service being offered or a fund that has now come about in society. All of those things can be advertised. It can also be there just to generate some kind of support for a, let's say, a financial issue or an economical issue, or even right now you would see in the media that we're facing some huge losses in terms of finances when funds have now been taken away from our country. That kind of thing can be showcased in an advert. You need to understand what's happening in that advert, okay? Remember, current trending topics is usually the sphere in which we would be looking at when examining you in grade 12. We can't test you grade 12s on things that happened 15, 20 years ago and expect to be up to date, all right? So everything will definitely be in terms of where you are as a grade 12 learner and where we'd like to see you flourishing in the next 2 or 3 years from here. All right? Ideas and issues in the world that would directly affect that idea will be tested in your papers, obviously. All right. So we need to look at ecological consequences as well of what we are doing right now. So keep up to breast with the current trends. Now, with advertisements, we've been stressing this particular principle for years, and hopefully you have understood that principle, which is known as AIDA. In other words, I'm saying to you, when I'm advertising something, I am going to try and grab your attention. I can either use an image or I can use maybe some words. I could even look at how I'm laying out that particular text for you and try and grab your attention. All right? So my font, in other words, the writing can be done in different ways. I can use pictures of maybe a celebrity or even a person that is in the real world with us right now in terms of a minister or a teacher or whoever it is, okay? I can use that image and I can advertise something about that. I can use shapes and sizes to make my message come across clearly. So also, I can make use of unusual catchphrases, all right, that will draw your attention in. Once I've done that, I've achieved attracting your attention. Now the thing is about me sustaining your interest. So how do I keep you engaged? I can either maybe look at again how I've laid out this particular text, the pictures. Have I been able to identify a target market that would like this image or like the use of these words as opposed to other words? How am I then maybe using words to keep you enticed and to lure you in further? Am I tempting you? Am I inviting you? That would then obviously go in terms of looking at the words being used in the text, okay? Maybe there's irony involved in my text, or there's sarcasm. Maybe there's a run on a play on the words, for example, which is the pun that we look at in that particular text. Then, after I've sustained your interest, I would like to create a desire within you to buy into my ideas about this text, okay? Or about this product or service, for example. So I'm creating that desire. Here I want to persuade you. So my words will become very important here. So I moved away from the visual. I'm now looking at the words included there. I could maybe include a promise that if you buy this right now, you can have free service for the next 3 months. Or I could maybe then say 99 Rand 99 cents as opposed to 100 Rand to keep you desirable of what I want to showcase to you. All right. So these are the things that you need to look at when looking at desire. And then once I've hooked you and I've got you interested and I'm making you feel that this is something that you can't do without, I now want to spur you on to take action. And this is where we're looking at the expected action from the text that has been showcased. Can you find information in the text that encourages you to go out and buy that product or buy into that idea of that service? Can you look at information, for example, of where to go? Is there contact details? Because that would now say, for you to get this, you need to contact me on that. You would look at that for the information being tested on action. Right. So when looking at the kind of terms used in the testing of advertisements, you have to know product versus service. Product is obviously the tangible product in front of you, okay? That is, for example, like your Big Mac burger, for example, okay? A service will then be something not tangible, and that could be advertised. Let's say, for example, they want to sell you a training gear that is going to be now trendy and widely used right across the world. It's cheap, all of those things. So they would then be selling a service that would come out from that training gear. If you join this club, you would be able to get this kind of service, that thing, okay? Right. So then we've got the target market that needs to be looked at. That is that person, it can be a person or a group of people that the advertisement or advertiser is targeting. All right? Please be specific on that. You can't just say any person who likes this. There has to be a particular target audience when dealing with an advert. Then we're looking at a brand versus the slogan. So a brand is obviously the name of that product or that service that is being showcased. And then you've got the slogan, which is that catchphrase of the product or the service that's being showcased. Right. For example, you'd see like just do it. And if you are that person who's keeping up in terms of the trends of tackies out there or sporting gear, you would know that that is the line that is used by the Nike factory or Nike company to sell their products. Okay, good. Then please look at the following when you're practicing how to deal with advertisements. Ask yourself the questions as follows. What is the advertising technique that is used here to persuade me to take action? All right? How has that advertiser brought me in as the reader to get his message across? So he's used certain things or certain aspects to lure me into by his idea as being the successful one to take note of. Can you then please look at categorizing and identifying the use of language in terms of persuasive language versus manipulative words that are being used? Okay, so those words that are going to uh, draw you to buy into a certain idea would be very much emotive or manipulative. Can you look at how it's going to persuade me to buy his particular product? And then also look at possible testimonies. Now, a testimony means that it's coming from somebody who is presumed to be a valid authority on that particular subject matter. Okay, so when that testimony is coming through in the advert, he is saying that if you don't believe me as advertising this product to be the best thing, then maybe you'll believe someone like Will Smith, or you'll believe someone like Halle Berry, who's talking about this issues in the advertisement. All right, so that is what you need to look at when dealing with adverts. Always also ask yourself, how do I react to each of these aspects? The mix of the images and print. How is it affecting me? Am I maybe buying into the idea or not? The colors that have been used here. Now, that particular question will only be valid to you if you're seeing something in color, all right? But if you've got the situation of the black and white that we're using in your NSC exams, you would have that light gray or that dark gray or that clear gray texture that is being showcased to you, all right? So that mix of those colors will hint on certain ideas. So how does it affect you as the reader? Looking at the setting, how is the image set within the text? All right. Where is the image as compared to the words around it? Where's the slogan? Where's the logo? All those things. You look at that. Where is this action taking place in the particular advert? Then look at the angle of the camera. Now, if you're looking at an image, you would be able to check, is it from the side view or the full-on frontal view or maybe an aerial view? All those things would come into play when looking at the camera angle. Then looking at the placement of the object. Is it the central focus of the text? Is it on the side of the text? Is it maybe in the left-hand corner or the right-hand corner of the text box? All of those things that you'll be looking at, because that is also hinting of how important the image is or the object is. Looking at then the characters within the text, okay, their body language, their facial expression, obviously when something is being advertised, right? The size of the image or the print, and then what about this text? Make a note. Can you personally identify with? Now, either in a positive or a negative light, that's fine. But what can you identify with in the text that has been showcased to you? That is how you will work with analyzing advertisements. Right. Then let's look at an example that appeared in an exam paper in 2022. Help save the sandwich. And then this text written at the bottom there is on the side of your screen. And then notice here we've got WWF, which is obviously that World Life Federation that's dealing with the endangered species. Okay, right. So the small text reads as follows. The tuna in your sandwich needs help because many species are being overfished, driving them to the brink of collapse. Indiscriminate tuna fishing also harms other sea life. WWF is working with fishers to get smarter fishing gear in water and leaders in the tuna industry to get more sustainable seafood in your sandwich. WWF is also co-founded the Marine Stewardship Council, an independent organization that certifies and rewards sustainable fishing. Look for the MSC's eco label to enjoy sustainable food. Help us look after the world where you live at panda.org/50. All right. Now look at that. Is also bolded there. So now the question is, what is this text insinuating about the image that has been showcased? Right. So let's look at the kind of questions that have been asked, and hopefully you've also identified in this text that there's some fish, which is obviously the sardines that are swimming around there, and then you've got the bigger version versus the smaller versions here, which is obviously the babies of that sardines, and then you've got the colors shown as the darker gray there versus the lighter color of the white screen, where it's showing you the difference in the color of the water that is being showcased there as well. Right. And then the image is coming from wwf.com there, and the picture is by Guy Harvey. So there's the source, all right? So try to find out as much as we can about the text. Good. So the question asked on this was, account for the use of the phrase save the sandwich in the headline. So there's important aspects here. Firstly, account the fact that it's a phrase that we're looking at, which is save the sandwich, and it's in the headline. So the headline is there and it stands out for us, okay? Firstly, that's important to understand. Secondly, it's a phrase. So you should be already thinking, does it need more for me to gauge understanding? Or can I just understand what save the sandwich means? And I'm hoping that you would know that it does need more to make sense, all right? An account obviously is now testing your level 1 and level 2. Right, so the phrase or the headline, which is what we're talking about here, that question has asked us, draws the reader's attention to what? Preserving the food source required for making sandwiches. And that in itself will give you 2 marks. So just by reading the phrase, save the sandwich, in other words, you should be thinking, I love to eat a sandwich, for example, and the contents should be of good quality. Therefore, if I'm looking at the headline, save the sandwich, I'm saying preserve the quality of the sandwich, right? And that is where that byline or that headline, is now coming into play. It is drawing my attention to preserving good food, all right, for sandwiches. And that gives us 2 marks. Then 3.2 asked, because many species are being overfished, driving them to the brink of collapse. That is a quote, okay? Critically discuss how the language used in this sentence is intended to influence the reader. So, critically discuss means I'm testing the impact that this quote had on you as a person when you're reading it. And I'm testing that in terms of you looking at the language used in the quote. All right, so it says, because many species are being overfished, in other words, there's a huge amount of fishing taking place, which is more than the normal expected level. What is the consequence of something like that? Will obviously be the brink of collapse or the brink of extinction of a particular species. All right, so that is the kind of ideas you should be gauging from the quote. So we want to look at that and we want to say, how has it influenced the reader? So 3 marks, we want to have 2 ideas well discussed here. That is that one where I spoke to you about, look at the mark allocation as a guideline to what's expected of you. So 2 ideas mentioned and the critical comment coming in that justifies that 2 ideas. Right. So the answer given in the memo was, the advertiser uses highly emotive words to convey the severe impact that will be felt if there is a failure to sustainable fishing, to implement sustainable fishing. So in other words, it's saying there are so many persuasive words or emotive words used to say to us that there will be a huge negative impact if we do not work to have sustainable fishing taking place. All right, so we mustn't overfish. We must fish within the normal expected levels. Right, 1 mark for that idea. Both the terms overfished and brink of collapse, so that's from the quote. We are looking at the 2 words or 2 examples from the quote. Both those terms emphasize the dire consequences if we do not practice safe fishing. All right. So safe fishing in terms of not overfishing, right? So if we continue like that, there will be negative effects. That's the idea coming in for the 2nd mark. And the 3rd mark is then a warning is issued that the destruction of marine life is imminent unless drastic action is taken. So we're saying that they've said to you, if you do not understand what's going on and you do not stop overfishing, there will be the collapse of this particular line of fishing or particular brand or particular type of food, and therefore we would have to rectify it unless drastic action is taken. All right. So if we don't do that by ourselves, then obviously other strenuous actions need to take place. Right. Therefore, we got 2 discussed ideas, well discussed here, and we're going to have a 3rd mark awarded for the comment. Good. Then on the same text, we're looking at 3.3. In your view, that's important, your view. Does the written text at the bottom of the advertisement support the visual image? Justify your response. Now, if we try and go back there, we are saying the text is at the bottom of the text is this one here. All right, this. How is that being in line with this image that has been showcased? That's what the question is asking you. All right. Let's go back to the question there. 3.4, if my mouse moves with me. Right. So does this written text support the visual image? Justify your response. So as long as your viewpoint is justified with evidence from the text, we will look at it as being possibly valid. So if you said yes, you don't get a mark for saying yes or no. That is not where you get the marks. We're looking for 3 marks here. We want to say, have you identified what the visual is saying, what the image is saying, what the text is saying, and now do you see the link and has it affected your viewpoint? You say yes. The text in small print supports the visual because it focuses on the dire need to protect and preserve marine life. 1 mark for that idea. So you're saying that they are related because they're showcasing that severe problems are occurring because of not protecting the marine life. Secondly, the image illustrates the fish swimming freely in their environment. So here's the reference to the natural environment, the visual as we saw it. WWF, in collaboration with the Marine Stewardship Council, is determined to protect this marine life through sustainable fishing, which is the only means of ensuring that the fish are not depleted through overfishing. So we're saying that we've looked at the idea of preserving life, marine life. We've looked at the fish freely swimming in their natural environment, and that we're saying, based on that, the WWF and the MSC have come together to protect this marine life through safe or sustainable fishing. So that is their situation coming together to avoid overfishing happening. And that's where your 3 marks come from, to say that is how the visual is supporting the image that, or the text is supporting the image that is given there in the text. Right, so 3 marks there for a well discussed answer. Okay, so look at the holistic thing of the image, look at the text that has been used, the emotive words, the persuasive language being used, and then come up with your comment that says this is why it is justifiable to presume that they are joined together. Right, so let's go quickly to a break, and I will be back in a minute to discuss the next part of the lesson.
Excellent. Excellence is a habit. Excellence is a quality you have, a quality I have. It's a quality we have when we honor what is true to us. Yes, we are gifted differently. uNkulunkulu akasininganga ngokufana. Excellence is striving for your best. Whenever you have a particular project, test, homework, uzibuze, ask yourself, is this my best? Can I put in more effort? Excellence is striving to be in the top 1% of the area in which you are gifted. And so I challenge you, in every single thing that you do, in every single area that you're gifted in, whether it's sports, it's academic, ucula, whatever that gift is, strive for excellence.
Okay, welcome back, grade 12s. We're dealing with question 3 here and looking at the senior certificate exam in 2022 that's dealing with advertisements. So let's quickly go back to show you the image again. Oops, daisy. Oops, okay. There we go. Okay, that's the image we're looking at for question 3. Now let's go to question 3.4 and 3.5, usually dealing with your language questions here. Okay, so supply the root word for the word independent. All right, so we've got depend as the root word. Only one answer accepted there. And 3.5, provide the verb form of industry. All right. Provide the part of speech for staff in the sentence above. And we are then saying industrialize or industrialize as in ZE for the answer there. All right, so we're looking for the verb form of the word industry, and that's your answer of industrialize or industrialize with the ZE, because we're saying that although you're in South Africa, you will still use some of the words spelled with the Z as the Americans do. All right, so your question, provide the verb form of the word industry, and the answer is industrialize or industrialize ZE there. Right, good. Then, what's the important information with regards to advertisements? Is you need to understand what the words of the advert are saying to you and understand how that is shown in the advert in terms of the images. So that in itself will then give us the message of the advert. Look at the slogan and the logo because that is there for a particular reason. Then look for your verbal clues versus your visual clues, because that is where the advertiser is trying to keep the reader interested in reading further. So he'll use certain words and certain images to maintain our interest. Please also make sure you're looking at the punctuation marks within the text. They are there for a particular reason. When answering the questions, break down the questions into different aspects or parts that you understand. Underline or highlight this as I've discussed with the comprehension passage. And then in addition, where there are 2 marks allocated for a language mark, please look at all the possible language concepts that could be tested with regards to advertisements. All right, so go through that with your class teacher. Now we've come to the next part of the cartoon analysis, and that is also a 10-mark question that we would be looking at. So for you to remember about cartoons is the following. It's a piece of art, usually to conjure up humor in terms of what is being showcased. They are there for us to express an idea or actions that are taking place within a short space of time. So this would obviously sometimes have well-known personalities being showcased, or very much common comic strips being used as well. So they can showcase a social event or a political issue. The key words to note here is obviously stereotypes can be used. So that's when we have an exaggerated viewpoint of a group of people or a section of society that we are now holding very close, and therefore we build ideas about people based on that. So stereotypes is definitely dealt with when dealing with cartoon analysis. All right, then the single frame versus the series of frames. Now the single frame has just as much information in it as compared to 3 or 4 frames. It's just that in a single frame, which is your cartoon here, we are saying that all the actions happening there. There's no other time for it to take place. All right, and that's the single one compared to the frames here, where we would say frame 1, 2, 3, and 4. Excuse my writing there. Whoopsie daisy. Let's go back. Let's see if I can make that a bit more. Oops. Gremlins, gremlins, gremlins. Not working with me. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and this is 4. Okay, frame 4. So the actions happening from frame 1 all the way to frame 4 in that particular cartoon strip. All right, and then we've got some terminology here that I want to try and make a bit bigger. Let's see if we can see it there. All right, looking at the title versus the sound effects, your symbols that are contained in the cartoon strip important. Remember, you'll have the panels or the gutter also that's there, that space between the frame and the actual text box. You will have speech bubbles and things like that, which I'm going to take you through, okay? So that is important for us to understand cartoon analysis, okay? Good. Then, what you need to do is to then look at the characters within the frames. They are there for particular reasons. The setting, in other words, where these events are taking place, and the words that are there are used to usually create humor, right? Again, reference to the mark allocation. Remember, 2 marks versus 3 marks. We want more substantial answers with the 3-mark questions, okay? Please look at tone versus mood versus feelings. So the word like tone is talking about the cartoonist. He has a particular attitude about that image or that issue he's talking about in the cartoon strip. Based on his idea or his attitude about that, it's going to come across in the mood or the atmosphere created when it's showcased to society. So there you'd look at the facial expressions that is coming across in terms of the characters that are within the drawings on the cartoon strip. We're looking at the body language of the characters. We're looking at the font being used from one frame to the next frame in terms of maybe different types of font or different sizes of font. All right. We're looking at punctuation marks. Remember, a full stop means something as compared to a question mark as compared to an exclamation mark. If we have both the exclamation and the question mark together in one frame, what is the cartoonist talking about there? All right, so these are the things that you need to revise when looking at the cartoon analysis. Speech bubble versus the various other bubbles. We've done this before, but just a recap for you is the fact that the speech bubble is a full lined bubble, all right, and it's the direct words of the character. Then you've got that cloud-like structure here with the three dots, the ellipsis sometimes, which is the thought bubble. And that's the unspoken words. In other words, the ideas that the character has in his thinking, right? And then the jagged edged one, the jagged edge bubble, is showing us the reactions, the emotional impact of what's happening in this cartoon on the character in that particular frame. So let's break it down slowly. The emotions of the character in terms of what he's thinking is then showcased in the jagged edged bubble. All right. So that is important for us to note the difference between the speech bubble, the thought bubble, and the jagged edged bubble. All right. Things we need to focus on in this particular piece of work is the various figures of speech or devices used with cartoon analysis. Firstly, do I know the difference in terms of a pun and satire? All right. Pun, obviously the play on the words within the text. Can I see that it's done to create humor? Right? That's an example given to you there of surrender. Surrender is when you're giving up to something, and surrender in this case is showcasing a knight who is being seen as Sir and the name render. So that is again a play on the words of surrender. Then you've got satire. Remember, it is an exaggeration or a mocking of something. All right, that is obviously serious, but it is made light of when we are dealing with satire. Again, to create humor. Okay, then we've got irony versus sarcasm. Can you note the difference, please, of the two there? One is obviously to create the imagery of hurting someone's feelings, and the other is not, right? And then caricature there, can you see, for example, showcase to you what the rock normally looks like in his special expressions being exaggerated here, drawn on the image, okay? So that is what we're looking at with caricature, exaggerated features of a well-known celebrity to showcase an idea. Right, so sarcasm, remember, is to mock someone in a hurtful manner. So we say the opposite of what is true to make someone look stupid or foolish. So sarcasm is to hurt. All right. Irony is using words that are opposite of what is really meant, and it's often done to create humor. So note that difference between sarcasm and irony. We have a lot of these things appearing within cartoons. So these techniques need to be understood clearly by you when you are answering the cartoon. Right. Then look at the difference between the visual clues versus the verbal clues. We've also done this previously. Remember, the visual is what I see in a cartoon. That is usually the body language of the characters, the facial expression of the characters, the posture of the character as well being showcased in each of the frames. As opposed to the verbal, which is the words that have been included here. They could be made use of rhetorical questions. There could be repetition of words from one frame to the other frame. There could be minor sentences. There could be maybe a song or lyrics of a song being included in a particular frame. Those are the differences that we need to look at. The visual versus the verbal clues within a cartoon, right? And then when looking at the following, please ask yourself the questions. When I'm looking at the actions of the characters, I'm asking myself, what is happening in this cartoon strip? How are the actions taking place from frame 1 to frame 2 to frame 9, for example? Okay, what are the characters doing to portray that action? Then when I'm looking at the characters, I'm looking at the emotions that the character is going through is showcased by his facial expression. Okay, so what is it that I'm gauging from his facial expression? His ideas again, or his thinking, is showcased by the actions and the emotions that he is using when sitting in a particular manner or standing in a particular manner or running in a particular fashion. All of those things is dealing with the body language. And then what does the language or the body language suggest about the relationship between the characters? Now, if you have to think about someone like Tom and Jerry, you know they always have this feud between the two of them. And whenever Tom is around, Jerry is trying to scare him off and do certain things. So he could be kicking him, for example, and there'd be speed lines being showing those movements, that kind of thing. It will suggest that the relationship is sort of a love-hate one between the two characters. All right. Then we've got language as another issue to look at. What are the words that have been used and how do they affect me in terms of understanding what's going on in this text? And then, has the punctuation marks being used? Has that affected or effected a showcase of emotions? All right. So how is the punctuation mark being used to suggest emotions of the characters? Right. Then the setting, I did mention to you that something is happening, events are happening within a space and a time on that particular frame. Where and when is the cartoon taking place? All right, or set, and what is the particular social context of this cartoon strip? Then I'm looking at the symbols versus the stereotypes. What kind of stereotypes are being challenged within this cartoon strip? And more important, has the cartoonist used particular symbols that will represent something? If you just look at the symbol, it will bring a different idea in your thinking. All right, so that is the kind of things you're looking at when dealing with cartoons. So, what am I saying to you about cartoon strips? I'm saying identify the setting. Where are the events taking place? Look for specific locations, specific places that you might identify with. That is where it is we are heading towards. Okay. For example, there could be, parts that we experience on a daily basis. Maybe going to a hospital or going to a restaurant or going to a particular shop or filling up at a particular station. All of those things can be showcased in the cartoon. Look and figure out the purpose of the cartoon. Why did the cartoonist do this particular or come up with this particular image in the cartoon? Think about it seriously, or are you going to think about it humorously when you're reading the text there, okay? You need to describe the facial expressions of the characters and be specific as to what those facial expressions can be interpreted to mean. You want to also look at the body language of the characters, okay? And focus on that. How are the characters moving within the frame? Their body movement, their postures, for example, the gestures they are making. Maybe one character is using their hands like I'm using right now, or they're using big, bolded eyes, or huge eyes being showcased. That kind of thing to suggest movements, all right? Then please look at your concepts like irony, pun, satire, sarcasm, the figures of speech that can be used like your hyperbole. Look at oxymorons, paradoxes, all those things that can be also used, okay? Then there are 2 marks allocated, for example, or 3 marks allocated in a question. Please, grade 12s, for you to get the full mark, you need to answer all parts of the question. So look at the question and understand what are the three aspects being used or tested here, and then answer the question. All right, so again, go back to what ma'am has taught you. So let's look at an example here of Tandi, who is part of the cartoon strip of Madam and Eve. Right, online schooling being the topic of conversation here. Remember, within the speech bubbles are the direct words of the cartoon image. All right, so Tandi, hold your homework up to the camera so I can see it. See is in a bold font, right, as compared to the other text. I can't. My dog ate my homework page. All right, so 8 is again in bold font, and can't also in bold font, showcasing a particular viewpoint. Notice the change in, notice her facial expression as it's changing from frame 1 to frame 2. Your dog ate your homework. There's the use of the question mark and the exclamation mark next to each other there, obviously for overemphasis of something. Notice again also the facial expression changing for the teacher on the virtual screen. Right, then we go to frame 3 and 4. Notice her change again of Tandi's facial expression. Of course, I'm not stupid. Oh, sorry. The teacher says, did you disinfect it before you gave it to him? And then she says, of course, I'm not stupid. All right, and then that's also emphasized there with a bold font. And then next frame 4, busted. I'm sending you to the virtual principal's office. Virtual principal's office is again different font, bolded, and then notice that Tandi's facial expression changes here, closed eyes, having her hand on her face, that kind of image coming through, and meaning that she's being caught out now, and the exclamation mark is showing her complete disappointment in being caught out here. All right, so that particular image was tested also in 2024. The question asked was, account for the change in Tandi's facial expression from frame 2 to frame 3, and I've showcased that to you already. The answer read, Tandi's eyes are wide open as she's trying to convince her teacher of her innocence. In frame 3, her hooded eyes and scowl on her face indicate that she feels insulted by her teacher's question. So that part where the teacher asked her about, did you disinfect it before you gave it to him? Notice that her hooded eyes there and that scowl look on her face. All right, oops, let's go back, it's gone too forward. Right, and then the last part there, Tandi is dismissive of her teacher's question. That also will get 2 marks there for you. Right, and that's simply, can you see facial expression and explain to me why that particular facial expression is used, and give me the change from frame 2 to frame 3 will give you 2 marks. Right, then the question on 4.5 on the same cartoon, discuss how humor is created in the cartoon as a whole. So we're saying from frame 1 all the way to frame 4, take me through in a discussion of how the humor was created. So firstly, although Tandi is attending virtual school, she still uses the typical excuse for not submitting her homework. So that's a normal excuse that we hear from students, that the dog ate my homework, or I forgot to bring it, it's in the other bag, or whatever it is. Okay, so in her case, that's the common one of the dog eating her homework. Secondly, the humor is created when Tandi is exposed as being deceitful by her teacher's sarcastic question. All right, for 2 marks there, when her teacher is saying, did you obviously disinfect it before you gave it to him, then she's being sarcastic there, and that now is where Tandi is exposed and she gets you get the 2 marks for that answer. All right? Credit responses that refer to the teacher's questionable sanction in frame 4. So if you did not focus on frame 1 to frame 3 and you gave us frame 4, a complete comment on that, you would still get the 2 marks for that question. So take us to the frames of what activity has taken place, how the sarcasm has been showcased to us, and then obviously give us the idea there that it has been effectively done or not. Okay, then 4.6 read, various options are provided as possible answers to the question below. Choose the answer and write only the letter next to the question number. Now, we don't usually get an MCQ, but in this year we did. The teacher's instruction in frame 1, written in indirect speech, is: the teacher told Thandi to hold her homework up to the camera so that she could see it. That will get 1 mark for the complete changes in terms of the tense and everything else in the sentence being changed to the past tense. Said that, told that would obviously be an important word to be used there as well. All right, and that will give you 1 mark for that answer. So that is in terms of cartoon analysis, and hopefully you go back and revise that. Then grade 12, we come to the section of question 5, which is the textual editing. Now, sometimes, you take it for granted that everything will be tested, and that's not the case, all right? We can only test you for 10 marks, but it doesn't mean to say it will be all easy questions. So you need to go back and look at the parts of speech. Can you identify the noun, verb, adjectival verb, for example, adjectival clause, the adverbial clause, all those things you need to be looking at, okay? Concord, do you understand where the singular is involved as opposed to the plural changes, okay? Are you looking at reported speech? Do you understand that that's the indirect words of a character? Can you make sure the tense is correct there as well? Ambiguity, malapropism, tautology, and redundancy. When you are asked to remove the redundancy in the particular sentence, please make sure that you don't find yourself where you give us both of the words in the sentence and then we don't know which one is the one that you are removing. So be clear in what you are removing from the statement or the sentence, right? Active versus passive voice, you obviously need to look at the sentence construction there and figure out which one is the subject or the object experiencing the reaction or the action, and how are they then working with that, okay? Then purpose or function of punctuation marks. Can you please identify the punctuation mark and tell us what is the reason for that punctuation mark being used? That's important, okay, in understanding language. And then phrases versus clauses. Remember, one can stand on its own and the other one can stand on its own and the other one needs more information to make sense. And then sentence structure, can you note the difference between the simple, complex, and compound sentence? And then obviously questions and statements, a different thing altogether to look at. Right, and then here's a comparison for you from 2018 all the way to 2022 of the various aspects being tested. The dash, the colon, can see it's being tested, hyphen being tested, concord coming through, parts of speech coming through, redundancy coming through, noun form versus root words versus hyphen versus formal English there. And then in 2023 and 2024, look at this long list in 2023, homonym, homophones, antonyms, all those things need to be looked at, redundancy, malapropism. Can you write out the sentence in full with no problems with the language? And then look at in 2024, we had those concepts being tested as well. So you need to please take note that the last 3 to 5 years of papers, NSC papers, is where you need to go and look at in terms of the language section of question 5 that has been tested, and familiarize with yourself with all of those structures that have been tested there, okay? And then please make sure you maximize your marks for 10 marks there. Cool. So what we are going to then be looking at in your following lessons to come, I will take you through that just now, but please remember, grade 12s, that you need to go back and familiarize yourself with all concepts in paper 1 to get the maximum marks for every question that has been tested. So thank you so much for joining me with this for this lesson this afternoon, grade 12s. I trust that you did learn a few things with me this afternoon and you'd go back and revise, okay? Please join me next time in term 2 on the 15th of April at 2 o'clock for a lesson on your orals, that's your prepared speech and your unprepared speech, and how to make sure that you maximize your marks. So until I see you on the 15th of April, take care of your health, take care of yourself and your family as well, and see you soon.